Limerence is an altered mental state, a state of profound romantic infatuation. When you're limerent, it feels like you're addicted to another person. And like all addictions, limerence can be a very destructive force in life if it isn't managed well. But addictions don't set in all at once. They take time to develop. In this video, I'm going to work through the different phases of limerence and the factors that make the obsession worse. And I'm also going to signpost those times when potentially you can escape, and some tactics for accelerating recovery if you have got into a state of person addiction. So my name is Tom Bellamy. I'm an academic neuroscientist and a writer, and I blog all about limerence at livingwithlimerence.com. On my site, there's over 400 articles all about every aspect of limerence, everything you could be interested in and how to manage it. And there's a thriving community of people who've commented and shared their own experience of dealing with obsessive love. And we're going to draw on all of that wisdom to understand limerence better in this video series. Okay, so let's start with phase 1, the initiation phase of limerence. Okay, so the starting point for most people's episodes of limerence is what I call the glimmer. So this is a period when you first contact essentially with somebody who could become a limerent object for you. The glimmer is a sense of a sort of special romantic potency in this other person. So there's just something about them that attracts your attention, and it kind of fires up the limerence circuits in your brain. You recognize a kind of blueprint that they have for romantic appeal, romantic attraction. And I think this is what many people call the kind of spark that they recognize in an exciting date and perhaps is missing from a disappointing date. It's that kind of sense that this person is unusually appealing. And your instinct when you sense the glimmer in another person is to pursue them, to try and develop a relationship and to get to know them better. Understandably, when somebody is particularly attractive to you, you continue to try and seek more contact with them. Often people will spot the glimmer very early on. It's almost a love at first sight, well, limerence at first sight experience. You know immediately, instinctively, that there is something about this person that just chimes with you, that resonates with you. You won't be able necessarily to pinpoint it at a conscious level. You won't be able to recognize exactly what it is in this other person that's triggering you. It could be a range of different things. It could be the way they look, it could be the way they smell, it could be some mannerism that triggers some distant memory in you. But whatever it is, whatever combination of appearance, behavior, and personality type this other person has, it activates your limerence circuits, and they get categorized within your mind into that sense of somebody with romantic appeal, somebody that could be a potential mate. Normally it's quick, but sometimes it can be a slow burn. So people have reported developing the glimmer over time as they've got to know somebody better and they've got to recognize other aspects of their personality that raise their appeal slowly. Sometimes it can be something as unexpected perhaps as them showing romantic interest in you. It can be a remarkable aphrodisiac to recognize, to suddenly sense, oh, I think this person fancies me, I think this person's attracted to me. And that can be enough to begin to initiate that limerent glimmer. It's a very useful skill to develop as a limerent, the ability to spot the glimmer when it's stirring in you. That's telling you, okay, there's a match between this particular person, this individual that I'm interacting with, and the blueprint in my mind for what an attractive romantic partner is. That glimmer is also the first opportunity to stop. So if you don't want to develop limerence, it's a very good idea to then be cautious about getting closer and getting to know that person any better. Okay, so the second phase of limerence is what I call the Euphoria Phase. So this is after the glimmer has developed and after you've got to know your limerent object a bit more, all of the amazing, euphoric, exciting, romantic emotions rush in. So this is the really good phase of limerence. This is why limerence becomes addictive. This is the phase where you just feel almost whole body shivers of excitement at the prospect of being with them, that being with them is just blissful. And it can transform our whole attitude to life. So it can seem that the world is a better place, a more colourful place, a richer place, generally have an increased sense of energy, of optimism, of positivity. And that's because this person is developing into a source of reward, a source of hyper reward for you. So this euphoria phase of limerence is like the drug high. This is the giddiness that makes you feel like you're falling in love. And that sensation, obviously, in the euphoria phase is powerfully reinforcing. Most people that get into that euphoria stage of limerence embrace it entirely and pursue more contact with their limerent object. It's a very powerful instinct to want to pursue a source of extreme reward. And obviously romantic love, even if it's manifesting in the early stages as limerence, romantic love is one of the most powerful driving forces for any of us. And so that euphoria phase feels fantastic. You just want more of it. You just want more contact with your limerent object. But it can lead into the third phase of limerence, and that phase is the fixation phase. So this is the point where the psychological fixation really sets in. The euphoria is beginning to peak, and it's transitioning from just the excitement and the thrills and the bliss into cravings and into obsession, an irresistible desire for your limerent object. So your limerent object becomes the absolute center of gravity of your world. You experience kind of total psychological capture. All your daydreams are populated by fantasies about your limerent object. You're starting to feel the transition into addiction. So the good experiences, the good feelings are beginning to get balanced by bad feelings. So this is when the daydreams become more like rumination, and you start obsessing about, say, the last time that you interacted with your limerent object. Did you say the right things? You start analysing everything they said and did to try and kind of tease out evidence that they're interested in you. Or you beat yourself up over something that you said or did that they didn't seem to like. And so you feel like, gosh, that was a misstep. I've jeopardised things now. And that rumination carries on into trying to rehearse, future meetings with your limerent object, trying to come up with strategies to seduce them, things that you could talk about or say that would delight them, that would get them to share more intimacies with you as you try to deepen the connection continually. And a major factor, a major driving force for this transition from the euphoria phase into the fixation phase is uncertainty. So if for whatever reason you're not able to actually take steps to declare your feelings to your limerent object, maybe it's just you being indecisive or not feeling confident enough to actually say something. Maybe there's barriers in your way, social barriers. Maybe your limerent object's married, maybe you're married, but there could be good reasons why you're not able to express yourself clearly. All that energy of the euphoria phase gets frustrated and gets trapped, and it goes inwards. And so that's when you start to get into these sort of cycles that reinforce the addiction and reinforce the obsession. So the fixation phase is often the first sign of problems. That's the stage at which limerents first begin to realise that they've got a problem, that they're no longer in control of their emotions. They're no longer just getting those pleasant thrills. They're starting to feel compulsions. The fixation phase often also has a critical moment in the progression of limerence, and that moment is the first moment of deceit. So that's the moment when you first tell a lie about why you're behaving in the way that you're behaving, or the first time that you lie about what you're doing or where you are. And that's a very psychologically powerful moment, because that's the moment at which you know that you are not acting honestly, openly and truthfully, because you know that your feelings are somewhat getting out of your control. The fixation phase as well can often be the moment at which you realise that trying to disentangle yourself from your limerent object is painful. This is another sign that you're moving into the kind of addictive phase of limerence, is that withdrawal comes with withdrawal symptoms, withdrawal pain. And so that again is another clear sign that your mind has moved from just enjoying the highs of the reward to compulsively seeking the reward and feeling pain and discomfort when you're not able to secure it. The next phase of limerence, the fourth phase of limerence, is what I would call the desperation phase. So this is the point at which the addictive spiral worsens. So the craving for contact with your limerent object, for intimacy, to form a relationship with them is getting more and more intense. But now the pleasure is starting to wane, and the pleasure becomes outweighed by the pain. This is a point at which many limerents become trapped in what I call limerence limbo. So you're in a phase where you're obsessed, you're fixated on this person, but you're not expressing your feelings. You're just trapped in an endless cycle of seeking contact, but then never declaring yourself, never openly admitting how you're feeling, and getting caught in the rumination cycles, in the endless reverie about your limerent object. People's behavior becomes more erratic in this stage as well. So as they get more desperate, they tend to escalate their behavior. So often limerents won't openly admit their feelings for their limerent object, but they can't help revealing it in their actions. So this is the point where you start to escalate things like testing the boundaries. So maybe pushing a little bit in terms of oversharing personal information with your limerent object, trying to get them to share secrets with you. It can be a time when your kind of hints or even overtures of romantic or sexual interest start to get stronger and stronger as well. And it's just like an addict trying to score a hit again by increasing the dose. So you're trying to escalate your behavior to try and recover those emotional highs. Now, one of the triggers, one of the factors that can push you into this state of this phase of desperation is that early signs of hope from the limerent object might start to pass. So the limerent object may have been perhaps a bit flirtatious or might have been seemingly open to romance, but now they start to cool off, they start to show less interest, or it becomes apparent perhaps that they don't have real genuine romantic interest in the limerent. That becomes the point at which this massive craving, the terrible sense that you're losing this amazing reward, even if that's an illusion, kicks in and you get even more desperate. So the desperation phase of limerence is the point at which the addict essentially hits rock bottom. This is the point at which limerence is almost entirely a negative experience in life. It's a trap you can't escape from. It's a state of mental limbo, and it's a point at which it's very hard to recover. It can be the stimulus to make the limerent realize they need to recover, but there's a lot of work, a lot of labor that needs to be done to get all the way back from that state of desperation into your normal state of mind. Okay, but there is a final stage of limerence, more positively, and that is the phase of recovery. Limerence does always end naturally. The fireworks of euphoria have to burn out. This is the point at which limerents finally begin to see their limerent object as an ordinary human being, because they're no longer getting giddy thrills just by being with them. They can begin to see their flaws, and the idealization and the idolization starts to fade. That recovery period can be a painful process, so it can take time. However, the recovery process is generally obviously a positive thing, and there are actually ways to accelerate this. So there are ways through your own behavior that you can accelerate the recovery process. Okay, so I've talked about the phases of limerence, the 5 phases, as sort of simple steps that follow one another, one after the other. Of course, life is never that simple. Limerence is going to vary from person to person. The circumstances that you're in as you go through limerence are obviously going to be very important to how any particular episode of limerence develops for you. Your behaviour and your life stage are going to be critical factors. So, are you single? Are you married? Are you happy? Are you unhappy? Are you grieving? Are you young and full of beans? Or are you at midlife and having a crisis of confidence about where you are? All of those are going to be factors in how you pass through the different stages of limerence. Equally, your limerent object's behaviour and life stage are going to be critical as well. If you have a limerent object who obviously is not interested in you, it can be easier to recover because you can clearly see, well, look, there's no prospect of a relationship here. It hurts, but at least you can see with clear eyes it's not going to happen. I just have to try and find a way to resolve this obsession for myself. If, in contrast, your limerent object is interested in you, but they don't behave in an open, honest and transparent way either, so maybe they're enjoying the thrill of your secret flirtation, of your secret emotional affair, perhaps, then their behaviour is going to influence how you progress through limerence as well. And there are different paths that can be taken. And of course, there's no better way to make sense of the world than through a flowchart. So let's speed run through the phases of limerence in flowchart form, including all the escape routes. So every episode is going to start in the initiation phase when you first sense the glimmer, you first recognise somebody as a potential limerent object. That's the easiest point to escape limerence if you don't want it to develop. Just avoid deepening the relationship with this person or getting to know them as a friend, and the limerence should never start. However, if you're bewitched by the glimmer, or you have a sense of hope that they may be reciprocating as well, or you actually can't avoid them for practical reasons, that can push you into phase 2, the Euphoria Phase. It is possible to escape the worst aspects of the addictive spiral of limerence from the Euphoria stage. And the easiest way to do it is to just be open and honest about your feelings. That should lead to one of two possible outcomes. Either your limerent object will reciprocate, in which case they also have romantic feelings for you and they're potentially open to a relationship, and so you can naturally form a relationship, and then the limerence shouldn't get into the latest phases of the addictive spiral. Whether or not the relationship works out is another matter for another video. The other possible outcome is that they reject you, that they're not interested in a romantic relationship, and that's obviously disappointing, but it eliminates any uncertainty and it gets rid of the false hope that they might have been interested. And again, that should mean that the limerence doesn't deepen beyond that point because you can't sustain it with fantasy. However, if there is some uncertainty, so it's not clear what they feel about you, or you're not able to express your feelings openly, that can drive you into the fixation phase of limerence, where the full sort of psychological addiction symptoms begin to develop. It's possible to get out of limerence at that stage as well, but it takes decisive hard work. The escape route here is breaking all of the habits of behaviour and thought that reinforce limerence and reinforce the person addiction. It's possible, there's methods that can be used to accelerate that. You can find your way to recovery, but it's a lot harder than either avoiding them at the very beginning or being open during the Euphoria phase. However, if you don't recognise during the fixation stage that you need to take action to recover and actually just act on instinct, the likelihood is that the addiction will deepen into the desperation phase and you'll get trapped in that limerence limbo. Really there, the only way out is through a lot of long and painful labour. That's the point in which the addiction is characterised by cravings, by obsessive thoughts, by involuntary feelings, by a sense of being trapped in an inescapable addiction, and lots of risks of relapse. It's a lot easier to get out of limerence in some of the early phases if you're mindful about what's happening to you. Okay, so they were the 5 phases of limerence. If you want to go deeper into the causes of limerence and the strategies to recover from it faster, head over to livingwithlimerence.com. There's a link in the description below. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.